Are you one of us? 16-bit graphics, or one of them, 8-bit? Buy Turbografx 16 now and get one of 38 selected games free!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Ultimate Turbografx 16 review here on Player One Start. In this video, we're going to start taking a look at the puzzle, strategy, and role-playing games on the Turbografx 16. All of these games kind of fit a similar style that are slower paced and focused a lot more on strategy than action, although there will be some overlap with other game categories. Let's take a look at role-playing games first. To recap, we have only covered one of these games so far in the early and launch games category, and that was Dungeon Explorer, which was a good game, but there's also another selection of role-playing games that were released on HuCard. One game that has definitely overlapped with earlier games is World Court Tennis. In this video, we're actually going to focus on a different aspect of that game, as it is also a sports title. But to see how these games actually stack up, let's go ahead and fire on the TV and power up the console. So before I show you the games, a couple points I want to reiterate is that number one, the Turbografx 16's game library is very limited, so there aren't too many games that I can showcase here. I'm not doing any PC Engine games, just the ones released for the Turbografx. The second point I want to reiterate is that I am only doing the HuCard games at this time. I am not reviewing games for the Turbografx CD attachment, at least not yet. I do plan to review those in their own video. I can tell there's been some confusion in the comments about this, but don't worry, I will get to the CD games soon enough. But that said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these games. Neutopia is an overhead action-adventure video game developed by Hudson Soft. It was released by Hudson for the PC Engine in Japan on November 17, 1989. It was then released by NEC for the Turbografx in North America in 1990. The game takes place in the land of Neutopia, where the evil demon Dearth has captured Princess Aurora and has stolen the 8 ancient medallions which contain the wisdom and power necessary to maintain peace and prosperity throughout the land. It is up to our protagonist to retrieve the 8 medallions, defeat Dearth, rescue Princess Aurora, and save the land from its people. This game is widely regarded as a clone of the then popular, and I guess still popular today, Legend of Zelda, in nearly every aspect. Many reviewers praised the game for making noticeable improvements over Zelda, but various shortcomings, which include long passwords, unless the system is used in conjunction with an add-on providing battery-backed RAM, repetitive gameplay, and poor collision, all prevent the game from being superior to the 1986 title. But overall, reviewers have called this game one of the better games of its type, and one of the better titles in the Turbografx 16 game library. I have to say, even without looking at the reviews and the descriptions of this game, I definitely got some huge Legend of Zelda vibes from this game. And actually, I think that made it a bit more enjoyable for me. There aren't too many RPG-type games on this system, so I think that makes this game stand out a bit more than it would on other consoles that had more titles to choose from. Since this game's release, it has received average to good reviews, often scoring between 7 and 8 out of 10, and I would be more on the 8 out of 10 side. If you're a fan of Legend of Zelda-type gameplay, I would definitely recommend this game to you. However, I will note that I did run into that collision detection issue that the reviewers, both past and present, have noted. And yes, that is something I struggled with in this game, but I don't think it made it unplayable or even a bad experience. It's just a minor annoyance that's there with me. That said, I would definitely recommend picking up this game. Well, what do you expect from a successful title on a game console? Well, a sequel, of course. Neutopia II is an action-adventure game developed by Hudson Soft again for the PC Engine, this time released in 1991, and it made it to the Turbografx 16 in 1992, and yes, serves as the sequel to the original Neutopia. In this game, players take control of the main protagonist from the previous game's son, who must begin a quest to both save his father and again defeat Dearth. Again, this game takes many cues from visuals and gameplay styles of the Legend of Zelda titles. However, one welcome addition to this game is the fact that they add diagonal movement. At first, I thought that this wouldn't actually add a lot to the gameplay, it'd just be something that'd be more convenient for navigating around the map, but even when you battle against several of the creatures on the map, I found myself getting much more into it being able to move in all 8 directions. Other than that, the game really plays almost exactly the same, even going so far as to use the same or just slightly altered versions of the music from the first game, at least how far I got through it. I'm sure it changes before you get to the end. This game again received mostly positive reviews, although most of the criticism came from the fact that it was very derivative and closely imitated the Legend of Zelda series at that time. And even though these reviews are mostly initial impressions of these games, as I didn't grow up with them, I would say that I probably enjoyed Neutopia 2 a little bit more than Neutopia 1. It just seems like a more polished and more smoothed out version of the first game. But overall, I would put it about at the same level as I would the first game, giving it around a 7 or 8, leaning more towards the 8 out of 10. The only thing that would limit me from recommending this to all collectors of the Turbografx 16 is the price. Any game released this late into the console's life cycle is a bit more rare because the system was kind of on its way out at that point, so the price on this is a lot higher. But for hardcore fans of this genre, I don't think you would be disappointed getting both. Cadash is a sword and sorcery video game which combines elements of both the role-playing video game genre and games of the platform genre. The game takes place in a medieval fantasy world similar to that seen in The Lord of the Rings. For the gameplay, it is important to note that this game was an arcade game before it was ported to a home console. According to some, this game is an early example of what would become a fairly common trend in the Japanese-made arcade games of the early 1990s, kind of this platform RPG combining side-scrolling platform action with an RPG system of statistics, level, money, and magic. One thing to note is that this game does support the Turbo Tap, where you can have up to 4 players playing at the same time. Each player will have their choice of playing as the fighter, mage, priestess, or ninja, each with their own different advantages and statistics. This game eliminates the original time limit that the arcade version have, I assume so that you can get more gameplay out of the game. Other changes made include agility, defense, spell costs, and damage. This was in an attempt to better balance the characters. To accommodate the differences in hardware power, the levels were divided into large rooms and halls connected by doors and corridors. Reviews of this game in Japan were very good. I find the art style and the music to be very well done, and the gameplay isn't bad either. However, if you put this game on easy mode, it can be beat in about an hour or two. That doesn't necessarily hurt the gameplay, but it does seem very brief, especially when compared to today's standards. Overall, I'd give this game about a 7 or 8 out of 10, probably leaning more towards the middle on this one. However, again, due to the price of this item, I would limit recommending this game to those that are hardcore fans of the genre or the Turbografx 16. Double Dungeons is a role-playing video game developed and published by NEC for the Turbografx 16 in 1990. When it was first released, one of its unique selling points was that it supports simultaneous two-player gameplay. In the game, players can select from 22 levels, earning gold and experience by killing enemies, with the last level not being accessible until the player beats the others. Gold can be used to buy items and weapons in a shop, or rest in an inn, all while experience points help to raise the player's level. Players cannot die, but are sent back to the beginning of the dungeon if they lose in battle. It was ambitious of them to try to go for a first-person perspective in this game, although it had been done on other platforms by this time period. While some may find this charming, I actually found it a bit dated. Add to that minimal story along with repetitive gameplay, and I found this game to be a bit boring. After this game was released on the Virtual Console for Wii, there were a lot of negative reviews written about this game. And while I can say I can agree with most of those reviews that the game just hasn't aged well, I'm not quite sure what the initial response would have been back in the day when this game released. I would lean towards giving this a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Now we have to talk about World Court Tennis again for just a second. As I previously mentioned, there was a role-playing game quest mode that you can choose to actually progress through this game as if you were playing a role-playing game, but still while all playing tennis. At the beginning of this mode, you're given the story about why you have to go play tennis to rescue somebody and whatnot, but in the end you actually get an overworld map where you just wander around until you hit a random battle encounter in which you have to play tennis against someone. Since I'm not very good at this game, I don't make it very far, but it is noteworthy on this system due to the very small library of role-playing games that are on here. Order of the Griffon is a tactical role-playing game for the Turbografx 16, developed by Westwood Associates and based on the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons. This game uses a turn-based combat engine that is similar to that of the Gold Box games, such as Pool of Radiance. Unlike many Gold Box games, however, Order of the Griffon utilizes basic Dungeons & Dragons rules instead of the advanced D&D rules. Players select 4 pre-generated characters from the following classes: Fighter, Dwarf, Mage, Thief, Halfling, Cleric, and Elf. Although characters are pre-generated, the player is offered 3 character options per class, each with different strengths and weaknesses. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not an expert in tactical role-playing games. In fact, I'm not really one that plays them very often, so I did rely on other reviews of this game to kind of influence an overall decision from me. And to tell you the truth, I did feel like this was a middle-of-the-road experience, around 5 or 6 out of 10. I do feel that the 3D graphics here work a bit better than Double Dungeons, and I was drawn in by the gameplay a lot more as well. If you're a fan of the early RPGs that were influenced by Dungeons & Dragons, I would say this one may be worth a pickup. But I'm not sure casual RPG fans, especially those that didn't grow up with this genre, would feel that this was worth a pickup, as overall I do feel this gameplay style is a bit dated. Moving on to another strategy-based game, this is Military Madness. This game is a sci-fi themed hex map turn-based strategy game. The game takes place on the moon in the year 2089, with the player controlling the Allied Union forces against the Axis Xenon forces. Units cannot be produced, but the Alien Union forces can capture enemy units if they are in factories, or find unsecured areas and gain access from them. Units can also be repaired by returning them to the factories under Allied control. I have to say, I actually got hooked into this game. This does remind me of those early tactical games that I used to play, kind of like an Age of Empires kind of thing, although it is much more simplistic than that game, mainly as this game almost entirely focuses on combat. The year this game was released, it received the 1990 Best Military Strategy Game Award from Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine. This game has often been cited as one of the key influences for the real-time strategy game Dune 2. And in 1997, Electronic Gaming Monthly ranked it at the 48th best console video game of all time, calling it the most addicting strategy game ever. I'm not quite sure if I would rank it that high up, but I will say it was one of the better strategy games I have played, especially from this time period. Collecting this game shouldn't break the bank, so if you're curious about this game genre or you're a fan, I would definitely recommend a pickup.
Alright, so that is all of the games that I have for the Turbografx 16 on HuCard that fit these genres. Again, I'm just looking at the role-playing game genre, and I did do one turn-based strategy game as it kind of fits into that similar playstyle. Surprisingly, even though there's a small game library here, I did enjoy most of the games on this list. One that comes to mind right off the top of my head is Neutopia, or Neutopia, depending on how you pronounce it. I know I kind of went back and forth there. But this game actually was really entertaining to me, and I think it was because it fits that Legend of Zelda style that I haven't played for about 30 years by this point. So that is something I was really interested in playing. Neutopia II I thought was just slightly better, mainly because I felt that it was a bit more polished out, as they were able to get the game graphics kind of smoothed out. They did rearrange some of the music and include some new tracks, but the ability to move in all 8 directions, even diagonally, and attack diagonally, I think made the game just a little bit better than the first one. Again, I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but just keep in mind that second game is very expensive to collect for. But out of all the games I showcased today, I think my favorite is Military Madness. And again, this one kind of surprised me. It kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't really recommended to me to play. I just kind of found it in the list and I thought, well, we can fit it in here because there aren't too many role-playing games to cover, and this game ended up being a hidden gem for me. I actually used to love playing these real-time strategy games back in the day, and I compared it to Age of Empires just a little bit because that was my first experience playing with a grid-style tactical game that you would get. The only thing I do want to clear up here is that there's no building up of your forces in any way, shape, or form like there is in that game. This is just specifically combat strategy. And it was something I found myself playing for a couple hours, only in a process that usually only takes me about a half hour to just capture enough game footage and get an initial impression of the game. However, if I've missed some of your favorite strategy games, don't worry, I do plan on continuing with strategy games as I go over puzzle games as well in the next part of the Ultimate Turbografx review. And that will be coming out to you here real soon. So again, stay tuned for that video. Remember, if you like what you see, please click that like button down below. Also, leave a comment down below, let me know what you liked about today's video. Also, if you grew up with any of these games, what were your thoughts about these games back in the day? I did find there was a surprising lack of resources available for reviewers' impressions and even gamers' impressions of these games back when they were released. And I think that's just due to the fact that the role-playing game genre wasn't as big back then as it is now, or at least more widely accepted. But that said, that is going to wrap it up for this video. Again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned because I have more content coming. I will see you all in the next one.
If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.